Welcome back to Shine In and Out, the space where science meets soul. I'm your host, Sammy Stoltz, and today we're diving deep into a topic that so many sensitive, soul-led leaders struggle with: the fear of being seen. My guest is Lyn Delmastro-Thompson. She's a healer, a guide, and a creator of the Unmuted Method. Lyn has spent more than a decade helping visionaries, coaches, and healers stop being the best kept secret and finally feel safe sharing their powerful work with the world. She blends hypnosis, somatic practices, nervous system regulation, and energy medicine to help leaders break free from perfectionism, people-pleasing, and fear of visibility. If you've ever felt like hitting post or pressing record was dangerous to your nervous system, this episode's for you. We'll explore the science behind why visibility feels unsafe and how healing at the level of the body and the subconscious allows your true impact to begin. Let's jump right in. Okay, Lyn, welcome. I'd love to start with your story. What brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so the story I'd love to share with your listeners is about how I was hiding in plain sight. So this wasn't even like I wasn't on a stage, I wasn't in front of a microphone, I wasn't even on a Zoom networking call. This goes all the way back to when I was in 10th grade. I was in my history class. I was wearing this huge oversized hoodie. Even though it was like 80 degrees in the room, I
Classic.
was sweating. I was like slumped down in my seat. Don't notice me written all over. Anybody relate to that?
Yes.
And I was praying that the teacher, who was actually my favorite teacher, would not call on me. And it's not for the reason that people might be guessing. It wasn't because I didn't know the answer. It was actually because I was terrified that the boys from the debate team who were in that class with me, that I was going to give an answer and that they were going to turn that answer into this debate. And
Oh,
so for me and my nervous system, that always felt like this horrible attack. It felt like my
that's
heart was
so
like
real.
pounding. My throat was so tight. Like I was like, how can I disappear from this classroom? How can I not be here? And really, that was my strategy for survival growing up. I learned not to speak too loudly, not to stand out too much, not to show too much of who I really was. Because the
Mm.
bullying and that stuff didn't just start when I was in 10th grade. It started like when I was in elementary school. I was different. I was the wrong religion for where I grew up. I was a girl who was smart. And so I learned how to shrink myself really well. And I made playing small like this personality trait, basically.
Mm.
And I carried that strategy forward into my adulthood and into when I decided to start a business. So fast forward a bunch of years, and I am a brand new business owner. My heart would race and pound anytime I had to introduce myself at a networking event. So we're not even talking like get up and stand on a stage and, give a speech. We're
Yeah.
talking a 30-second elevator pitch. Total panic. And then when I would talk about what I did, I mean, I was doing energy work for a long time before I would really explain it in such a way. I would hide my woo like as much as I could. I would make
Mm.
everything scientific,
Mm.
palatable, safe. And that worked in some ways for me until I realized it really wasn't working. It really wasn't
Mm.
working. So about 8 years ago, I had this pivotal moment. I was at a women's conference and I realized sitting in this room where I felt really out of place with 100 other women in the room, but I had this aha. I realized my issue wasn't, I didn't know how to market myself. It wasn't I had the wrong offer or a crappy website. It was that I couldn't build the business that I really wanted to build if I was hiding who I was. So
Wow.
there came this moment, and the organizer said, would anybody like 5 minutes to stand up on the stage? And most of my body was like, hell no, does not sound good to me. Can I go hide in the bathroom, please? And yet I found myself raising my hand. It was like an out-of-body experience, I think.
Woo!
I knew this was gonna be hard. I knew my voice was gonna shake because when I used to stand up in a room, my voice used to do the whole thing that some of us may be familiar with.
Natural.
And I walked up to the stage and I started to just naturally start taking these deep breaths. I was like, oh, this is something that I teach my clients. I teach my clients stress management. Deep breaths. Feel your feet on the floor, like ground. And then I remembered, for years, I had performed dance. I had been a dancer, and that was the only way I ever felt safe, really being
Mm.
seen in a performative way. So I dropped into that, walked up to the stage. I shared with the room, and it was such a powerful moment for me. All the women came up to me afterwards. They said, wow, that was so impactful. I'm so grateful you shared. And it healed it started to, I mean, not instantaneously, but it started to heal that little girl who had been bullied because she finally felt like these women were like, oh, you're awesome. I see you. I love you. You're
That's
cool.
so sweet.
And that really, that was a turning point for me. And that really, these pieces, the nervous system work, the embodiment practices really became the foundation of what I do now with my signature unmuted method that I use to help other sensitive, big-hearted leaders on a mission stop hiding and stop being the best kept secret at what they do. So
Wow.
yeah, it was just such a powerful, powerful thing, and my turning point because I at the end of the event too, was we all stood up and declared, what are we taking away from this?
Mm.
What are we claiming? And I stood up and I said to this room full of women, I am going to be a speaker. I'm going to be a speaker, because it felt actually good. And I realized I could do it in a way that really aligned. So I know this isn't just my story too. I always like to say that.
Oh, yeah.
So many people out there struggle with this. And it's such a passion to me to help other people on that mission because we can't build a business if we're ghosting every post,
Oh,
if we're
that's so
watering
real.
down our message, So for those listeners, if you are in that place, I just want you to know I see you and I hear you. I've been there. And your message and your gifts for the world are important, but only they can only find you when you feel safe being seen.
That
So
is a beautiful message and one that I resonate with very much. I'm definitely letting myself be seen more than ever, but there's
yes.
totally parts of me that is blocking my success because I'm afraid to show everything or to go all in. Unlike you, though, I do not feel safe dancing.
And that's not everybody's thing. For me, I did ballet as a child. It was a love. Somebody asked me recently, she's like, well, what was the difference? And I'm like, I think because, first of all, it wasn't my voice. It
Mm.
was my body, and that felt safer. And I had my girl gang up there, these girls that we started ballet together when we were in early elementary school. So I wasn't doing it alone. I wasn't standing up there having everybody stare at just me. It
Yeah.
was these
That's how I was
girls
with choir. I could be in the choir as long as everyone was singing. It wasn't just me doing a solo. I refused
to do
very much
solos.
to do a solo. And wow, I had so many similar experiences, especially even as I was developing as somebody who was being more and more willing to be seen and more willing to be seen as imperfect, especially.
That's a
Um,
big one.
I remember my organic chemistry class, this infamous professor, and he's having his TAs run microphones across the room, and he's calling on random students to answer these questions. And like you said, it's not that I didn't know the answer. And part of me wanted to help him out because there was such an awkward silence and I didn't want other students to have to suffer. But my heart rate went through the roof. I would get lightheaded. I would start sweating and I'd be like, Actually, never mind. I'm not going to answer that question. It's not worth my, like,
Panic
sanity. That's
attack
insane.
moment, yeah,
Yeah.
up here.
Yeah. So I completely understand that, and I think a lot of my journey in the past few years has been little by little showing more and more of who I am rather than who I think I should be presenting to the world.
Yes,
And it's
yes, me
interesting that you were
too.
talking about the science that you were hiding behind and you didn't want to share your woo. Could you explain a little more about that? Because I think it's something that I struggle with as well, that some of this stuff is just intuitive and it makes so much sense to me inherently, but I know there are so many skeptical people that feel the need to have these things proven before they can jump in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me, well, I grew up with 2 PhD chemists for parents. So, like,
Wow.
I think I had
Awesome.
like this, yeah. People are like, "Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense just saying that, right?" So, I felt like I really had to, even though they didn't like vocally say to me, you have to prove yourself or you
Mm,
should, go in and be a chemist. I think there was a part of me that like always felt like I was judging myself against them. I was
yeah.
judging myself against the standards of my parents. And, I actually had pursued a different career path before I got into healing work. I was pursuing a PhD, not in chemistry, but in history. So I think there
Oh.
was that part of me that really wanted that legitimacy that I thought that
Mhm.
gave. I mean,
Mhm.
now I don't attach to things like that. I'm like, there are brilliant people out there who have never even gone to college. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. But
100%.
to, the 20-year-old me who grew up with 2 parents who were highly intelligent, intellectual people, like, I pursued that path. And I loved history at the time. Like, I'm not gonna say I didn't pick something that interested me. I didn't go
Mhm.
into chemistry because that did not interest me in the least.
There's
But,
plenty of that in your household.
yeah, there it was like, we got that covered. I'll hold down the history niche over here for everybody. But it was really wanting that legitimacy, and I think that carried forward into when I started a business, and I actually started out my healing work doing something that was more kind of science-based because I did biofeedback. So that is, like,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of one of the most sciencey healing things out there because they actually will use it in medical facilities. So it was like kind of my bridge,
Yeah, and
between.
it's the parallels are so interesting, and I'm so glad that we're talking now, and I'm also glad that I'm able to be vulnerable and share this openly with anybody listening. I definitely struggle with the idea of my scientist peers hearing me speak spiritually because
Mhm.
I don't want it to neglect that I'm also a neuroscience researcher and I also know all of the biology behind these things. And I think
Right.
it's a beautiful thing to connect the two things, but it's not a common thing. So I definitely shy back. I had a postdoc in my lab or in a lab in the same vicinity um, ask me what my podcast was called. And I was like, I don't really want to tell you. Because he's brilliant and he's got such a critical eye and it's so helpful in so many ways and I love being critiqued, but I also, you know, it's a very vulnerable thing to have people listen to your innermost
Yeah.
realizations and then pair it with the you who they see in professional life. So
Right.
I completely understand what you mean. In your experience with helping all of these sensitive leaders who say they want to be visible but always have that something holding them back, what do you think is causing all of us to hide like that?
So the theme that I'm finding with a lot of the people that I'm working with, it's really has to do with what happened in our childhood. So
Mm.
as my story shows, bullying, right? But I'm also seeing like parents who weren't really able to be the best parents
Hmm.
for the people that I'm working with. So like highly critical mother or father, maybe a father who was alcoholic, raging and those types of things, like all of the reasons why literally it didn't feel safe in childhood,
Yeah.
and how that gets carried forward into like you know, it's better if someone's raging or dangerous as a child. What do? You do hide because you're small. You're not going to go up against your mother or your father who's
Hmm.
full grown. You're going to like go be in your room and try not to be trouble.
That's so true. I used to, when you'd know the footsteps of who was coming down the stairs. I used to go and pretend to be asleep, even if it was like 7 p.m.
Wow.
and I was in high school. Like, it's so real. It's so real. And all of that is your nervous system. When your nervous system doesn't feel safe and you're in fight or flight, you can't operate as who you truly are. You can't come from
No.
a soul perspective. You're just
Nope. I got to
paralyzed by fear.
survive. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got to survive this. I can't, I can't show up and be shiny and beautiful and let my soul sparkle radiance out into the world. I got to just hide over there in the corner and not be too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about the nervous system safety being that missing piece in people feeling able to show themselves, their true selves. How do you help them achieve that?
Yeah, so a lot of the work is deep work. It's deep healing work of the trauma first of all. Like we can't just
Hmm.
bypass what happened in the past and say, "Oh, well, you were bullied, abused, neglected, whatever, and that happened, but we're not going to look at it." So we have to like safely work with healing that. And then the work is really about creating tools for empowerment for before you show up, holding yourself through when you do the thing, whatever that thing is for you, recording a video, publishing a post, speaking on a stage, like whatever that looks like. And then regulating your way afterwards too, because oftentimes we forget. It's like afterwards, our nervous system is kind of like, whoa, we just did the big thing, I need to come back to my center.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sometimes when I finish a speech, I'm like, how'd that go?
I
Because
think I
I'm
wasn't
like,
really here anymore,
I wasn't there.
right?
But I mean, when your amygdala senses a threat, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is responsible for creativity and problem solving and expression, thinking on your feet, it goes offline. So when
Exactly.
you're feeling unsafe up there on stage and you're worried about not being able to think of what you need to say, you're so worried that you're
You're
creating
basically,
the fact
yeah,
that you can't figure out what to say. And so the things that you teach, like the grounding and the breath work and the somatic movement and stimulating the vagus nerve, it all restores those safety signals. And even though it's extra vulnerable to show that you're nervous on stage and that you need to do these exercises to get through it, once the body feels safe, you can be your authentic self with everyone and share your message so much more beautifully. And not only that, but being vulnerable is such a beautiful, powerful thing. It
it
shows
truly
the people in the
is.
audience that never wanted to do it because they knew they would stutter, that they can do it and stutter anyway and still have an incredible impact. In fact, it makes
Exactly.
makes makes it easier for people to connect to you. Like you
Right,
said, if
because it's
you
like, "Oh, you're human," like, you're not
yeah,
perfect and polished and, standing up there like a professional speaker if you're a little wobbly.
totally. So, I'm sure you do a lot of mindset work as well. Do you
Yes,
help people
yes.
shift the perspective, maybe to remember their why, about why they want to do this and let it overcome their fear? What exactly do you work with people doing in that
Yeah.
realm?
Yeah, so I'm also a hypnotist, so I work more
Oh,
at that subconscious level with
nice.
people because we have a lot of those beliefs that are running the show. Things like things I've heard recently from clients. Why should I share this? Because somebody else could share it better. Like somebody else could do a better job than I can. I'm not good at this. My voice doesn't matter. So all those little negative Nancy's or
Yeah.
whoever's running around in your brain, whatever you've decided to name that part of yourself, because I think that can sometimes be helpful is to give that part a
Again.
name and be like, "Hi, I see you. You're negative Nancy. Can you go in the back seat, please? Because I don't really need you driving the car."
Appreciate
Um,
it though.
yeah, it's like, "Thanks for showing up, but no thanks. Get in the back." It's working at that deeper level because a lot of people who found me, it's like they've already kind of done more like a coaching, they've worked with a business
Mm,
coach, they've worked with maybe somebody on more of the traditional mindset, but it's still that like deep-seated belief and that deep-seated identity too of like, I'm not a public speaker, I'm not good at talking to crowds, everybody's going to get mad at me and be mean to me if I am seen. We have to help that part, which is so deeply wired into our brains. I mean, most of the beliefs we have formed in the first 7 years of our lives. That's so crazy when we think about it.
yeah, very powerful. And for people who don't realize that and just continue living by them, it's almost scary.
Exactly. Like,
Like you're
is your inner
suffering.
5-year-old is your inner 5-year-old driving your life right now?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask at any moment. You'll actually love this story when you mentioned the hypnotism and all of the public speaking and stuff. I have a very direct story with that. I lived on a ranch for the middle school years and I decided, all right, it's time to go back into society. So, first week of high school, we're told that the final exam is going to be a big speech. I'm freaking out from day one. I'm having panic attacks every
Sure.
single day, thinking about having that speech at the end of the year. And just, I'd had it. I was like, I need some help because this is not sustainable. So I went to a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, and she kind of helped program me toward feeling so excited to be done with this
Mm,
instead
it's
of
like, "It's over. I did
yeah, instead of the
it."
fear anticipation. And it's so even to this day, when I give a speech, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is gonna feel so good when I'm done." And that's what I focus on instead. It's
Right.
it's it's
It's
incredible and
it's like, "I
it's
did
just a
it. I did
tiny yeah.
it."
Yeah. It doesn't take away who I was before and what I was saying to myself before. It just kind of like put a better layer over to focus on. Is that how you would describe it?
I would say, I mean, it is certainly a rewiring too. I
Mm.
mean, so we're going in there. The way I view hypnosis is like going in there to your basement, so to speak, and looking at
Yeah.
all the junk that's in your basement that tells you these things about yourself, these ways that you see yourself, the beliefs that you're operating from. And it's kind of like, oh, well, we're shining the flashlight around. Do you really want to carry around this big box that says, I'm not good enough? Or if I
Ugh.
say, like, if I speak my truth, people are going to hate me and reject me. That's a hard one to carry around. That's like, maybe we could take that out to the curb and bring in some new boxes or some new shiny furniture, maybe that says, hey, when I show up and I share my truth with the world, like good things happen.
Yeah, get a nice cloud couch in there.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And even the not so radical stuff, like there are people out there who didn't have like crazy levels of trauma, but of course, when you're a child and your needs aren't met in every capacity, you're going to have struggles, even if you don't understand or remember. So
Exactly.
it can be something that you consider small that's impacting you so powerfully. And I'm sure that hypnotism takes you into that subconscious, what has been there this whole time that I don't take the time to look at and think about.
Exactly. Yeah, before I get into actually taking someone in, we do a lot of what I call kind of a belief deep dive. So we actually have a
Mm.
conversation when you're not in hypnosis, although you can do conversations while in hypnosis too, which can be really impactful to kind of talk to the part of you that's maybe not accessible. But I like to take people through, well, what are you telling yourself? What's that voice in your head say about if I post this video on social media to promote my work in the world? What does that voice say? I'm going to instantly get 500 negative comments and, and people are going to hate me. And then I'm going to have to go hide in the bathroom because it was so bad. Like that was,
Oh,
one that I had to work through on some level because I feared haters.
oh no.
And I haven't really attracted that much of it. And the times that I have, I'm
Good.
like, okay,
Nor should you.
block, block
Yeah.
exists for a reason. Remember that, people.
They're seeing a sliver of who you are and what your message is, and they're interpreting it with their own lifetime of perceptions.
Right.
We have no control over that. They
Nope.
don't know us.
Nope. If
It's okay.
you're triggering something in them, that's their, it's
Yes.
their problem, really. But then we feel like, especially, most of us who are sensitive, who have any empathic tendencies, we're like, oh, I
Ooh.
did something wrong, I messed up and I made that person sad, upset,
Oh,
angry.
yes. Oh, that's the worst feeling. I'd rather be upset any day of the week than make someone else upset. Whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we operate so much from that, trying to avoid making anybody upset that it's like
Yeah.
we lose who we are.
Yeah, well, so I'll tell you my thoughts that come in, and they sound a lot like some of the ones you've been mentioning, and maybe you can show us how you help people reframe them. So, a lot of them are so many people are already talking about psychology and the mind body connection and the science, and they're also talking about the spiritual aspects of stuff. And a lot of the time, I'll just be like, what do I have to say that hasn't already been said? But or that I don't know enough, that I'm afraid to, like I'm always afraid to make claims. Like, even though I know the research, it's like
Hmm.
when I walk in the hallway by somebody and I know their name, but I'm too afraid to say hi name because what if it isn't?
The right name. Well, what
Like
if it's actually Sharon and you
exactly.
think it's Susan? Oops.
And then I hurt their feelings.
Right.
It's just like that. And my brother is like he can just spin a web and does not care if it's accurate. And it's beautiful. Good for you. But I've never been able to I will always err on the side of I'm not positive about this, but even though I'm probably the most credible person to talk on the subject. And I doubt myself consistently. And then I have guests come on and talk about things that they have studied their whole lives to be experts in. And everything they're saying, I already have studied myself and understand. And I'm like, oh, like, I do know my stuff.
Exactly.
But you forget those moments every time you come to a place where you have to be the one sharing, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I would say let's dig into that and think like what if you had to summarize that as like one belief that you hear in your head all the time, what would you say kind of comes on a broken record?
I guess because knowledge is ever changing. Like, that's
For sure.
one of the only certainties. So if I'm posting something with an understanding that I have in one moment, that it will be seen later when we have newer understandings of things and be seen as
Not
tainted
accurate.
information or not trustworthy, that I don't have any control over if I post this video and a new study comes out tomorrow. It's I don't want to
Right.
be giving misinformation and I don't want to be seen as lacking credibility.
Mhm.
That's definitely
Okay. So I don't want to be giving misinformation. I don't want to lack credibility. And if you were to do that, what does that mean about you as a person? Like if you were to give misinformation.
I guess it speaks to reliability. Like, if I came out and said all of these things and they were false and could harm somebody because I'm trying to give information on how to lead your life better and it's not good for you, or like all of those studies, like eggs are good for you, eggs are bad for you.
Yeah.
Actually, eggs are good for you. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
I'm like it's so hard to even stand by any claims because there's no certainty in anything except for even theories are theories because they're theories. Like, they haven't been disproven, but we never know. So, as a scientist, that freaks me out.
Okay. So it's like kind of there's a feeling of I'm responsible if I give somebody bad information and then it causes
Mhm.
harm, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of that if we were to shorten it, it's like I'm responsible. Like I'm responsible for keeping people safe, maybe. We could
Yeah.
just
I want
s-
people to listen and only get good things. Not Here's a funny story. I said to my brother, "The only certainties in life are death, taxes, and laundry." And he carried that around thinking that was the real quote and was saying it to people. And I was like, bro, that was a complete joke. I'm so sorry. And my accidental misinformation through a joke made him look like he didn't have the credibility in all of these future conversations. And I was like, oh, so sorry about that. So it's something like that, I guess, that if somebody references that they learned something from me and my reference wasn't good, it's like I feel like I have to do an incredible amount of fact checking before I even say a single word. And I won't say something if I'm not positive, even though it's something that could be super helpful, but just maybe slightly doubtful in the way that I could say it.
Okay. Right. So it's like going into that analyzing. Oh, like I have to do all of the research to try to make sure I'm not doing anybody any harm.
Yeah. And that takes the soul message out of it. Like, that is coming from my soul to want to share with people. If I'm crushing it with all of have to read, have to prove, it does take away from the light that it was originally trying to emit.
Right. So kind of the way I would work with something like that is so we've kind of danced around what the belief is that's running in the background. Then we would create a new belief. Like, what would you rather believe than this? Like, I'm responsible. If I didn't do all my research, spend hours on this, and somebody's hurt, like, what would you rather believe?
I would rather believe, I mean, I guess a disclaimer comes in handy, especially legally. But I
In
would
your own
rather
mind. I mean,
believe,
you're not, we're
yeah.
not saying I'm putting this out there as,
Yeah, I want to believe that nothing I could say would be anything but helpful to somebody, that they'll glean what they need from the message and release what they don't.
hmm Beautiful. So then we would take something like that and we would actually bring it in, like bring it into hypnosis so that your
Mm.
subconscious keeps hearing something like that,
Yeah,
like, and
that
maybe
speaks
there would be
to,
like a,
yeah,
a, a supplemental belief there of like, I do the best that I can. Like I do my due diligence. It's not
yeah.
saying that you're just rushing to put stuff out there, like without considering it with some thought, but I can't control what's going to happen in the future. Like if suddenly now eggs are bad again, like that's not my responsibility.
Wow. And that kind of unlocked something in me, like an overarching realization that I take responsibility for so many things that I don't need to in my life. Other people's emotions, their
Uh-huh.
reactions, their life outcomes, all of that. And I do need to remind myself I'm only responsible for my part in things. And as soon as my message is out, it's up to them.
Exactly. And people, I think, have to have their own sense of responsibility and due diligence too. It's like we could Google something and there's all sorts of crazy things that you could come across as an answer to a question. And we could accept everything at face value that we Google. And that's really on us too, because we were just like gobbling that information up without going, does that make any sense even to believe that, to do that, to follow that? Is there any real research behind this, or is this just some person on the internet shouting at the top of their lungs some message and we just go, "Oh, okay."
People do every day. It's scary.
Exactly. So
And
yeah,
I,
there's
you know,
personal responsibility, I think, comes in on the other side. Like you do your due diligence. You don't just jump to putting things out there in the world in a way that's irresponsible. But like people also have to go, well, does that make sense what she just shared? And does that make sense for me?
Yeah,
Yes, we are
absolutely.
not responsible for everyone else all the time. I give you permission to take that off.
I'm sure I'm very sure that that's a childhood thing as well that I've taken with me, trying to
Be
play interference, you know?
Right, be responsible for, yeah,
Mhm,
managing certain situations. I mean, that's
mhm,
usually where things came from. We learned something. I was at this event this weekend, and all these women who were like the oldest, the oldest daughter were like sharing.
mhm.
I mean, I'm an only child, so I guess I'm the oldest, the youngest, everything, right? But all these women who were the oldest were sharing how much they've taken on the responsibility. Like, I'm the one that has to help everybody with everything and do all of the things. I can't ask for help because I'm the oldest.
Yeah. Mm. There's these agreements that we make with ourselves so early on that just, "Eh, let's do inventory every once in a while, folks. Let's check up on
Exactly.
this." So as far as the nervous system goes, you've explained your own experience of how you were having panic attacks in those moments that aren't necessarily life-threatening like you would experience a true fight or flight response in. But what have you seen as far as the dichotomy between your clients that you've worked with before when they're trying to share their message and what that looks like, and then after they know and they have control over their nervous system, what that looks like afterwards?
Yeah, so I would say, the transformation is just really being able to walk with yourself through that process and that journey. I mean, I always like to say it's not like this is a complete magic wand and you're never going to have moments where your nervous system gets jangly and, and as you go to a new level, like as I'm kind of doing that in my own process, there's parts that come up that it's like, oh, okay, new level, new devil. Is that the saying, right? But you're more resourced to be able to deal with those situations where you can kind of be like, oh, okay, I know that this is my pattern. And I also know what to do with myself in this pattern instead of just letting it run away, run the show, basically, be a runaway reaction. And I can't control it.
Totally. And the exposure therapy, I'm sure you encourage your clients to expose themselves little by little to what they're fearing. I personally have seen a huge from going to never wanting to speak in front of another soul, even just an audience of 2, to to being okay with speaking in front of hundreds because I want to share a beautiful message with people. It's huge, and it was all just those tiny exposures over time and showing myself that I could handle it.
Exactly. Yeah, I heard a speaker at this event that I was at over the weekend, and she talked about dosing courage. And I loved that
Oh,
idea because
I
it's
love
like,
that.
we're not saying to you, hey, like go jump up on stage of 500 people if you're like terrified to talk to one person about what you do. Like that's not my approach whatsoever. It's like, what's a small step that you can maybe that's just sharing what you do with somebody that feels relatively safe, but you've never told what you do, or saying, can I practice this even with somebody who you do know is like your cheerleader, a best friend or something, and be like, I
Hmm.
don't even know how to talk about what I want to do in the world.
Yeah, that actually brings a question to me. There are definitely times when I am afraid to start geeking out about something because my family already starts rolling their eyes back in their heads because 'cause they're like, "Oh, here she goes. She's gonna tell us some facts that we won't understand." Like, and that's what lights me up, the sharing of knowledge and having those philosophical conversations, but as soon as somebody seems uncomfortable or isn't lighting up with me, I just shut that down, and I know that I shouldn't, and I wish I didn't feel like I had to, but if it just stops lighting me up, so I don't want to share after that.
Mhm. 'Cause,
What do you
yeah, the
do in those
response
moments?
the
Yeah.
response you're getting basically doesn't feel like that person is, like, equally or at least at the same ballpark of excited, like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Tell me more." They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, okay." I think the part of that is, like, the meeting of the part of ourselves who wants that approval. Which probably is a young part of yourself, my guess would be, like, who wants everybody to approve and like and be enthusiastic. So, obviously, we can't control how somebody else is gonna respond, like, they're gonna be enthused or not. That's not your
Yeah.
job, but it's, like, kinda holding, like, "Ooh, where do I feel that in my body? Like, where do
Mm.
I feel what happens in my body when I'm in this moment with the person and they're just kinda like, "Eh, there she
Yeah,
goes
I think
again."
I I love having those conversations with people who are on the same wavelength. It just is one of the greatest joys in life.
It is,
But
for
when
sure.
somebody reacts in a way that makes me feel like I need to shut down, what goes on in my head is, this isn't going to benefit either of us if I keep talking because I'm going to feel bad by your reactions and you're not going to enjoy what I'm saying. So I'll just keep it to myself. And I start doing that more and more with
Yeah,
those people that make me feel that way, even once or twice.
right.
And that's not fair of me to assume that they don't want to hear what I have to say, but I get myself into that pattern for
Where
sure.
it's just, like, kinda going into shutting down, like, or
Hmm.
avoiding, like, "Okay, I just won't say anything to this person because I suspect that's how they're gonna respond."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, my sense of it is just talking to that part of yourself who really wants to have that experience of that person being excited and on the same wavelength. Because, yeah, I agree with you. It feels more magical and alive when we have those conversations. But that there's a part of you that's probably getting triggered and saying, well, it means something about me that they're
Mm,
not interested, that
yeah.
they don't want to engage in this. Maybe it goes back to that, like, that pattern of what I have to say isn't important or everybody, other people have more important things to say.
Yeah. I'm a much better listener than I am a speaker. At least in the comfort sense, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a lot of us, I know, I often like to listen sometimes more than I like to be the person in the spotlight. I think
Yeah.
if we're introverted, we're sensitive, like, those are some of our tendencies, and that's not wrong.
Yeah. I see the shifts in my perspective. They're small, but they're so powerful, and all I have to do is take that second to remind myself, and I'm sure you have so many tools like that for your clients. Like, when I'm about to go on stage, I remind myself, "This isn't about me. This is about them and what I
Right.
can do to help them and make their lives better and make them happier and healthier with my message." So
Exactly.
instead of
Somebody
having the
out
spotlight
there.
on me,
Yeah.
I'm the lighthouse guiding them,
Right.
and that's
Somebody out there needs to hear this. That's, a great thing to just drop in our mind. I'm
yeah.
saying this because there's at least one person in the room, probably
Yes.
more, but there's at
Yes.
least one person who needs to hear what I'm about to say. And it's not about me. I'm the messenger, I'm the lighthouse.
Yes. That's exactly what I say. I'm like, if the entirety of this business and this wellness empire I'm building changes one person's life, amazing. I've done it.
Then
If it
it's worth
changes
it.
many, many lives, even better. And I'm sure each ripple of one person's life, it just, you never know where it goes. So,
No, you don't. I've had clients when I was doing more work with people on their health, like, I've had clients who,
mm,
as they healed, they, like, went in to the field of becoming someone who helped people with their health. So it's
oh,
so beautiful to see transformations, and now in this work, I almost feel like I'm an amplifier of other people's missions in the world because when they get out of their own way, when they get
totally.
unstuck, then they can help more people. So it's like I'm almost helping through them, through the layers of it. I'm helping more people through helping them help their
Totally.
people.
And that's such purpose-filled work. And it's a great reminder that if you think back, all of the beauty that you're sharing with the world today is because you went through the hard times. You
No.
wouldn't be where you are. You wouldn't be as inspired to help people through it if you didn't know what it was like and feel stuck in it for so long. We see it everywhere. Every person that's so inspired to help is somebody who's been in that situation. I've been burnt out. I've struggled with my health. I've not come from healthy places with my connection to my body and eating and all of those things. And when I figured it out and the clicking moment of life is so much better and I don't have to suffer is a choice. You just want to show that to everyone else so that they can feel that relief and that joy and live from that place because so many people don't know that they can live from a different place than they are, especially when it's that suffering and holding on to things.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. The more like we can help other people see the light, that's possible for them.
So I'd love to hear more about, you call it the unmuting protocol, is that what it is?
Unmute, unmuted method. Yes.
Unmuted method. That's
Yeah.
I'm all protocol.
The scientist in you. It's all good. So, yeah. So I have my, what I call my safe to be seen nervous system tools. So that's all about the, regulation before, during, and after we are putting ourselves out there in the world. And that
Mm.
looks like whatever you choose to make that look. For some people, it's speaking on a stage. Some people are like, I never want to speak on a stage. It's all about what you want. There is working with our kind of, it's safe to be me, diving into your trauma, your childhood woundings, healing those pieces. The subconscious reprogramming, which we've already talked about. And then I do embodiment work as well. So it's kind of around the safe to take up space in the world. I think when
Mm.
we're in our bodies, when we move our bodies, when we let our voices make sounds, so even if it's just in the privacy of your own space, it's not performative. You're like flailing around and making sounds in your room. Like to some people, they'd be like, how is that part of your process? But I think, it's freeing the parts of us who are like, I have
Oh,
to like
yeah.
be a certain way in the world. Maybe there's a party that wants to like scream and make noise.
Let it all out.
Cool. Let it out.
Safe to be me. I like that. I totally notice I'll start telling a story to a group of people, and then if it doesn't seem like everyone's listening, I'll just like peter out, like get quieter as I go.
Yeah. Oh, I guess
And that's
nobody's
the
paying
exact opposite.
attention.
Yeah, yeah. That's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We should be heard and we should believe that we should be heard. I love that.
Exactly. And I think the more we hold that energy for ourselves, this is just something that I'm seeing more and more. I in the past when I would post things or I would, record a video and there was a part of me that was like, I want to be seen. And then there's the other part that's like, oh, don't see me. Like that's scary. And you literally, from an energetic standpoint, can almost like put a veil over things that it's like nobody engages with it because you're like, I don't really want this to be seen.
Yeah, it's like our own subliminal messages to other people. And sometimes not subliminal. I've told many people that my worst fear is being publicly known because then my privacy, people know about my life, or when I'm out at the
Right.
grocery store having a day where I don't want to talk to anybody, people are going to try to talk to me. So
Yeah. Which is kind of the reason why I'm like, no, I don't really need like millions to know who I am. Cause
yeah.
I do value, and I think there's something to that, like valuing. I wouldn't want to be a celebrity status person because I do value having just a private life as well. But,
Totally.
I think there's a middle ground there where we can find like, I can share my message with the world. Maybe I'm not going to be, on a stage where every human in the world knows my name like Oprah. I mean, does every human
That's
know her
that's
name?
where I
No,
go
but
back and forth. That's where I go back and forth because if our message is so important and meant to be heard, and it's always renewed for me when I do help people and they express to me how much it helped. I always get that renewed sense of, all right, F my own feelings. I need to bring this out to people. People need to hear this. people are suffering when they don't need to be suffering, and I have the
Exactly.
words that can help them. And
Exactly.
it's it's a trade-off, but part of me is like, well, I don't want to be famous for something that maybe like the A-list celebrities are famous for
Right.
sure. But if I'm famous for helping people, and I think I'd be able to maintain some sense of privacy, and I just don't want to block helping as many people as I can just because of my preference.
Right. So
Preference to
yeah, it's
be
kind of like your mission and your calling is bigger than that on some level.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously where we get to decide too, our own personal what feels right to us. What did we come here in this life to get to experience? And for some of us, the calling is so big that it's like I would be willing to get out of my own way with that. And for some people, it's like maybe it's like no, that's not a choice I really want to make, and I want to
Yeah.
have some sort of boundary around that.
Yeah. I mean, you have much more impact than you know. I'm very sure about that because everybody that you help to share their message is sharing their message with all of these people who are now living their lives differently and sharing those messages. So even if it's not your face or your name that comes to mind when people think of that
Right.
theory or whatever it may be, you had a huge part in it. And it would it is nice to not have to be in the spotlight and to still have that purpose-filled life. I'm
Exactly.
hoping to find a balance of that. All right, so as we're wrapping up, for someone who is listening to this and realizing that they've been censoring themselves, even if they didn't even think that that was something that they were doing before, what do you want to tell those people? What would you want to tell that younger version of yourself? How can they start on this journey?
I think the first thing I would want to say is just remembering that what you have to share with the world, whatever that is, the calling on your heart, it matters. You are important and you matter. Because I know certainly there were phases of my life where I didn't feel that, and that was a struggle. So it's like what you have to offer
Mm.
the world matters. And then it's as we were talking about taking those small steps. I mean, it doesn't have to be jumping out of the figurative airplane of I'm gonna like throw myself on a stage in front of 1,000 people in a room. It could literally be I'm gonna write a post and share it only with my friends, maybe with specific people, and I'm gonna share my truth unfiltered in a way that I haven't.
Do you think also taking a moment to question your fears is quite powerful? If your fear is, I'm going to make this post, people are going to hate me. If you asked yourself, like, if all of these random strangers hated what they read, does that say anything about me? And won't I be okay because I have my loved ones in my life that would never see me that way? And just kind of bringing yourself back to reality because those thoughts can get so
Big and
negatively grandiose.
yes, yeah, I think that is a great point as well, where we kind of can reel ourselves back in and be like, this person that I've never met that's saying mean things as a troll on the internet. That
All
person
right.
is fine. Whatever, that's their thing. I actually heard, I can't remember who it was at the event that I was at. They were talking about visibility, and she said something like, people on the internet are not my boss. And, like, just that realization that they're not my boss. Yeah, people say mean things behind screens that
Yeah.
they probably would never say to your face if they
Nor
met
should
you in
they.
person. They have anonymity, they're behind a screen, and remembering to ourselves, like you said, we have people who love us, we have family, we have friends, we have ourselves ultimately.
Absolutely. That's it's so beautiful, and I hope so many people take from this that it's never too late. Never too late to start letting yourself be heard. even in
Ex
your small circle of friends. Start there.
Exactly. Yeah, even though I've been speaking a lot to people with business, it really can apply to just in life. Like, do you filter yourself
Oh, yeah.
constantly with your
Oh,
friends or your loved ones where you're like, "Oh, I'm only gonna tell them this because I think that's what they wanna hear. It's palatable."
it's so freeing. Of course, it's scary at first, but the more you see that it's always okay after you do something like that, one, and two, that it feels good. It feels like you're letting yourself free, like out of your shell, literally. And I don't think you can go back after that. I really don't.
No, I think the more you step out of that, I mean, it is very freeing. And I think there's some things to be said too as we get older, we get more to that point where we're just more able to be like, I am who I am, like take it or leave it. 20-year-old
So
old
true.
me wouldn't have been quite so comfortable. I wish she was, but
Yeah.
but she wouldn't have been that comfortable saying, "Hey, I'm not for everybody. It's all good. Like you do you, I do me. If we don't mesh, it's fine."
I know. And the only reason I think that I've adopted that so early is because I think about my future self a lot and what she would regret and what she would care about and what would bother her later. And it's never those little things that I disagree with somebody and it shatters everything until I'm 80. It's always, I wish I felt safe to be myself. I wish I shared my message even though I was scared. I
Right,
wish I spent more time with my family instead of feeling like I had to work all the time. All of
right.
those things are like the universal truths
Exactly.
that
And
you
then
once
asking
you know
yourself
them, yeah, you can't go back.
and then even asking yourself, "Am I gonna remember this in, like, a few weeks?" Like, this comment
Yeah,
that somebody made? Probably not. Like, we think so. There's that part of our brain that's like, "Yes, you will remember this for the rest of your life, and you're gonna feel horrible." And that's really usually not true. I mean, if you think back to mean things people have said, can you remember? Unless it was something, like, deeply, deeply hurtful.
well, I mean, because it's tied to an emotion, the memory is that much more powerful. But as soon as it happens, if you tell yourself, I'm going to let this go because there's no reason to suffer over this,
Exactly.
I can't change that they said it. I can't change that I read it, but I'm not going to like let it glue itself onto my mind
Let
for
them
the
take
long
up free
term.
real estate in my
Yeah.
brain.
Oh, yeah. That's the last thing they deserve if they said something mean to you. So, yeah, let yourself free of that. I don't even, after I post a video, I legitimately forget that I posted a video and then I'm like, "Oh yeah. How's that doing?" Or like I'll get an email that I had a comment. I'm like, "Oh yeah." because because that's not what it's about. That's
No.
really not what it's about.
No, I think to me it's about, sharing what's on your heart, speaking your truth, and letting it kinda through the magic of how things work, like, the right people will hear it when they're ready to hear it.
Exactly. Exactly. Beautifully said. And I think all the right people have heard your message today, Lynn. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to sharing your message with the world.
Yeah, I look forward to it too. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Lynn, thank you for bringing such wisdom to our show today. I know so many of our listeners will feel seen in this conversation, and I can only hope that they will be inspired to show themselves to the world. If you want to connect more with Lynn, all of her information will be in the show notes. And she's actually offering a special free gift. If you DM her my name, Sammy, in all caps, on Instagram, you'll receive a 5-minute embodied expression activation, which is a perfect pre ritual for going live, hitting post, letting yourself be seen. And I'll leave you with this. The science shows that our brains can rewire, and the soul reminds us that we're safe to shine. The moment you stop hiding your full expression is the moment your true impact on the world begins. Until next time, keep shining.